Welcome on in. WIP Daily Joe Giglio with you. Appreciate everyone listening. Subscribe and follow the podcast. Of course, our YouTube feed, which we're on right now, 94 WIP. Check it out there. Happy to be back. I was off last week. Did some, obviously, podcasts on the feed, but we recorded those. I wasn't in last week at WIP. Happy to be back here. So much to talk about. All-Star Week, people always make this out to be like the slowest week there. I like this week. I think it's fun. We can take like a big picture view on all the teams, whether it be the Eagles or obviously the Phillies, who entered the All-Star break with 8 All-Stars. Now that Christopher Sanchez on the team and the best record in baseball, still best run differential, even though yesterday kind of obviously cut into that one. That was a weird day yesterday for the Phillies. They kind of mailed in the weekend against the A's and obviously prioritizing some health for their pitchers, including Zach Wheeler and Ranger Suarez here. But I thought today we'd go over some awards for the first half of the season. Team awards, player awards, for the first half of what is one of the greatest first halves the Phillies ever had. Let's start with team MVP here. And I saw today, and I was listening today as I drove in the morning show, they were doing a poll on this. And, soliciting what people thought, who's the team MVP in the first half. It's pretty obvious to me. It's Bryce Harper. I mean, Bryce Harper is the MVP of this team. He's one of the favorites to win the MVP in the National League. I don't know if he could beat Ohtani, but obviously he's right there underneath Ohtani. Bryce Harper, I think we're almost underrating his first half for a couple things. One, he did have an IL stint towards the end here, so we haven't seen him get, have an extended run of wow for a few weeks because he was out for a few weeks. And right now, it's Trea Turner who's hot. Earlier in the season, it was Alec Bohm who was red hot. So the different players have taken turns on being the red hot Philly. But the guy that's been the best Philly all year is Bryce Harper. He has a 300, 400, 500 slash line. His adjusted OPS is 173. This is one of Bryce Harper's best seasons. And we'll see how many games he plays and hopefully stays fully healthy the rest of the season, with a little less than 70 games to go. And, maybe get himself to some big round numbers. But this feels like an incredible Bryce Harper season. Probably going to end up his best all across the board if he stays healthy here on out. And he's the team MVP to me. Second on my ballot will be Alec Bohm, ahead of Trea because Bohm has been there the entire year. He hasn't missed time. Trea has moved obviously up the charts the last few weeks because of what he's done. His adjusted OPS in the 150s right now, or close to 160. He's been an incredible offensive player the last 2 weeks. It's just been crazy hot. And then I would have Schwarber underneath that. But I would go Bryce Harper as the team MVP. Cy Young for this team, as we look at this season, is obviously really hard. They have 4 really good starting pitchers. 3 of them are in the All-Star game. So my vote went to Zach Wheeler on this because I think Wheeler has been start to finish their best pitcher. Really has had 2 bad outings the entire season. The one in Miami on that Sunday, I think it was Mother's Day, and the one on the Sunday game against Baltimore. Other than that, he's been incredible. And the crazy part about Wheeler's season so far, and he's an all-star, even though he's not going to participate, is I don't feel like he's really turned it up yet, or had that great outing. He's had a lot of really good outings. I just close your eyes, think about Zach Wheeler's best outings this year. It's 7 innings, 2 runs, 4 hits, a walk or 2. Good. Really good. Just consistently really good. Really good. Really good. I don't know how long the back's been bothering him. Hopefully, it's not that big of a deal. Phillies are downplaying it. They'll probably throw him in the Minnesota series, the second one out of the All-Star break, not the Pittsburgh series this coming weekend. So it's you don't think anything's going on, but then came out this weekend and that back's been bothering him for a couple starts. So I don't know. I felt the whole year Wheeler has been outstanding, but hasn't reached his best yet. And if that's coming, he could actually take home the real Cy Young. He's my Philly Cy Young. So my ballot, I went Wheeler, Suarez, Sanchez, Nola, but you can move those 3 around. I mean, they've all been really good. And then I went Matt Strahm on my list as well because I think Strahm's been incredible. All right, so Harper's team MVP, Wheeler as your team Cy Young winner. The biggest positive surprise, we'll do positive surprise and negative. The biggest positive surprise has been Christopher Sanchez. If you had lined up all these things, if you'd shown me the Philly stats at the halfway point or, whatever, where we are right now, 68% mark of the season, 65%. If you'd shown me their stats right now, all the players, and you said, what stands out? I would have obviously pointed to Alec Bohm because this is his best year. I would have said, wow, Trea is found it. And he's hitting like the player they signed him to be. I would have said that, obviously. And I would have went down and looked at Matt Strahm and said, wow, Ranger Suarez, wow. But nothing would have blown me away or surprised me as much as the reality of Christopher Sanchez. He has been incredible. That changeup is one of the best pitches in baseball, not just on the Phillies. It's one of the best pitches in baseball. He's an all-star because of it. He barely gives up any home runs. I think it's Chicago a couple weeks ago against the Cubs. That was one of the few times, the ball went in the air and went out on him. I mean, he's kept the ball on the ground the entire season. He's become a weapon. It's really a testament to the Phillies player development here that he's become what he's become. He's easily the biggest positive surprise and has taken this team to a different level because, the Taiwan Walker struggles are not surprising. The other guys they have, the Tyler Phillips story is awesome, but like Ricardo and Mick Abel's not ready. If let's just go to a world where Sanchez was what he was a year or two ago. Yeah, up and down, fifth starter, sixth starter. You don't really know what you have there. You know what we'd be talking about right now? Do they need another starter? Is that the conversation as we get close to the All-Star break? That would be it. But because of Sanchez, that's not it. Tucker, we'll get to the biggest negatives and the unsung heroes, but Harper, Wheeler, and the biggest surprise being Christopher Sanchez. Like, if you had told me when this year started, Christopher Sanchez is a legitimate all-star, I would have said, you're crazy. And here he is.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really pegged him to be a full-time member of this rotation,
No.
right? He was just kinda in there by default as the 5th guy, maybe, holding that seat warm for when Andrew Painter came up next year. Like, I don't think anybody thought of him as a long-term piece in this rotation, and the fact that he's now not only developed into that, but into an all-star, I think is really impressive, and I agree with you with the other 2 picks because, quite frankly, they're your 2 best players, and they're playing at the highest level, and maybe we do take it for granted a little bit with Harper just because 'cause we're used to it, and Alec Bohm having that great start to the season was shocking to see. Trea Turner and, his 340 batting average that we've, seen this season may be a little shocking, but, I mean, Bryce Harper's flirting with 1,000 OPS. He's playing defense at an elite level at first base position that he only started playing 11 months ago. It's incredible to see just how easily he's taking that spot, and then you add in Zach Wheeler. You mentioned, like, he hasn't thrown a shutout this year. He hasn't gone 8 innings in a game yet this year. I think he topped out at 7 and a third. But, I mean, his B plus performances, I think he's 2nd in Cy Young, odds right now, maybe 1st. Him and Chris Sale are kinda 1-2, but, I mean, what those 2 guys have done kinda at the top for a team that's dealt with a lot of injury issues and has missed a lot of guys over the first half, it's kinda nice to see the 2 best players on their team really stepping up and leading every day.
Yeah, I mean, you get the record the Phillies have. You only get to it if you have a combination of stars that are playing really well, and the Phillies obviously have a slew of those. They have 8 guys in the All-Star game, and you also have the other guys step up and have maybe career years or really good years, and we're seeing that with a guy like Christopher Sanchez. The other guy I thought about for the shocking or the surprising in the positive way is Matt Strom. I mean, that Matt Strom has been a good Philly so far, and it was a good signing by Dave Dombrowski. He's exceeded expectations. He's done all different roles. Remember last year in the beginning, he was a starter because they had so many injuries. Then he transitioned back to the bullpen. He got big outs. He was on the mound to finish out the LDS last year. Like he's done some good things as a Philly, but this year it's been remarkable how good he's been. I mean that game last week against the Dodgers when he struck out Otani, it was like wow, like that felt like an October preview where he's the guy they're going to call on to go get the top of the Dodgers order out. And obviously Mookie Betts is not there right now, and that's a big monkey wrench in those plans to get him out too because he's amazing. But you fast forward October, and Matt Strom is going to be when Betts, Otani, and Freeman come up in the 6th or 7th or 8th inning, Strom's going to be the guy on the mound, and that was a preview of that. So I thought about him, but I went Sanchez. Biggest positive surprise, biggest negative surprise has been Bryson Stott. He's just stagnated. He has not taken the step that it looked like. I thought he was taking it in May. He got off to a kind of a slow start, but I thought it was more bad luck. He was hitting it to outs. Wasn't bad. The strikeout to walk ratio was really good. I thought Stott was going to bounce back. I kept waiting for it. And then May arrived. And it's like, oh, here it is. Here's the star. And I thought, as May progressed, if you had told me, Joe, the Phillies have 8 All-Stars, I would have said, oh, Stott's going to be one of them, right? He's going to have a big May and June. He's going to make the All-Star team. Well, no, and he doesn't deserve it. He has been not as good as I thought he'd be. His bat speed, which has always been slower than the best hitters in baseball, feels like it might be an issue for him. It just doesn't feel like he generates enough torque on that swing and hits the ball hard enough. Now, he's still youngish, and he can still figure this out. And I still believe there's a better player than a guy with a sub 700 OPS. But I think Bryce Stott's been a disappointment. And the other one that's been a disappointment, and if he was still on the team, maybe he'd be the biggest one, is with Merrifield. I mean, he was an all-star last year. They signed him to be the super utility guy. And I think they gave him enough opportunity to show that he had something. And I think they made the right decision on Friday by pulling the plug, giving themselves a few weeks of, all right, let's see what Weston Wilson could do. And let's see what we have here before the trade deadline. because they just have to upgrade. You just can't let a Whit Merrifield sink this season. So there's many good moves the Phillies have made. That was a bad one. It didn't work. He might be cooked, and now they're going to move off it. But I go Bryson Stott as my biggest negative surprise. Tucker, that's the one I'm most surprised about because I just thought there was more to Bryson Stott, and so far it just was a bad first half.
Yeah, and think about where we were a year ago with it, where he was hitting well over 300. He
Yep.
kind of hit a wall in August last year, but people are walking around now, and this kid's going to win batting titles. He's going to have an unbelievable career, at the top of this lineup, for a decade, hitting, 310, 315. And this year, he just kind of looks lost. He's taking a lot of strikes. He's swinging out of the zone. He doesn't really look locked in. And you mentioned he had like a 2 week stretch in May where he, bumped his batting average up to like
Yep.
285. And then he went, I think like 4 for 55 after that. And he's been down in the 240 since. And he's the one regular that I think everyone else has kind of played to what you expect. Like Castellanos had a disappointing first month. He's been around 750 OPS since then. He's been all right and what you expect, but he's been the one regular that from opening day till now has really struggled. And then on the pitching side, I think Jose Alvarado's been pretty disappointing the last month or so. Like I don't know the last time he had a scoreless appearance. He's really struggling to find the zone. He's not missing a lot of bats, and for a guy who's struggled to stay healthy for entire points of the season, I just wonder how worn down he is after this workload in the first half. And it kind of gets glossed over because you have three guys in your bullpen right now with a sub 2 ERA and Strom, Kirkering, and Hoffman. But you have two guys who you counted on in your last two postseason runs in Jose Alvarado and Sir Anthony Dominguez. But I don't think really you've gotten much from in the first half of the season.
Yeah, that and it brings up a good point as we go towards the trade deadline, which is what 2 weeks from tomorrow. The Phillies are going to need to get a bullpen arm and an outfielder. We've had this debate which one. No, they need both because I'm at the point I don't trust Alvarado right now, and I don't trust Dominguez right now. And Tucker mentioned the three that are trustworthy. That's not enough. I mean, you need five in October to get through the whole thing. Soto's been really much better as the last month and a half, so maybe he could be one of the five. Still leaves someone. It still needs they need one more, and that doesn't even account for if they have depth issues or injury issues as the season goes on. I agree with that on Alvarado. So Stott and Alvarado, and then I found Unsung Hero as our last award to be challenging because you want to pick them all. I mean, so the options are Edmundo Sosa, who did such a good job, overall without Trey Turner that they didn't really miss Trey Turner, even though you look in composite, Trey has hit like an undeserving all-star this season. They really didn't miss him because of how good Sosa was during that 6-week period. Spencer Turnbull, who gave them a tremendous amount before he got hurt, was in the rotation, went to the bullpen. Now he's hurt, but he gave him a tremendous amount. I think the Rafael Marchand Garrett Stubbs combination more than held their own. The Phillies went what? I think it's 17 and 14 in the last 31 without JT. That's keeping your head above water without, one of your what we would have said most indispensable players. I think they both did a good job. And then you go to some, just smaller guys that have chipped in here. There, the Tyler Phillips story was awesome this, past week or so. Obviously, Cody Clemens with a big hit against the Nationals that game in May. There's so many to choose from. Tucker, I'm going to go Sosa because the Phillies have had from the start to right now this season probably top 5 offensive production at shortstop, and he gets credit for whatever a third of that. Like that's on him, and they didn't lose anything basically when Trey was out.
Yeah, and that was a big deal, right? Trey goes out in 6 weeks, and my goodness, he's a guy who was an MVP candidate, maybe should be based on still how well he's hitting. And you didn't miss a beat. I mean, Amundo Sosa still got an OPS plus of 121, plays better defense than Trey Turner, which a lot of people play better defense than Trey Turner. But I just think the whole bench in general, and maybe this is a bigger point to Rob Thompson and just the culture that he's created in this clubhouse where everyone stepped up, even guys that have been disappointments, maybe with the exception of Whit Merrifield. You can kind of go through the list. And he mentioned, Cody Clemens had that big hit. David Dahl had a huge home run in London. He had like 3 hits or 3 home runs in his first like 6 at bats as a Philly. Cooled off considerably after that. But, Rafael Marchand, he has 3 home runs this year. He has like 3 home runs in his career in the minor leagues. Just what the entire bench and everyone that's come up has been able to do in spot starts. Tyler Phillips on Saturday, a big point of that. Michael Mercado in his first
Mhm.
appearance. It's just unbelievable to see, a team that really has dealt with injury issues to the top half of their lineup for most of the first half. The fact that they're still where they are, they have the second most wins in the history of the National League before the All-Star break, behind the 74 Dodgers and 73 Dodgers. And it can be with, Bryce Harper spending time on the DL, Trey Turner on the DL, Kyle Schwarber on the DL, Realmuto still on the DL, and it's because of the depth and the culture that's been created by Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thompson in that clubhouse.
Yeah, to the topper point, and we were just doing Phillies awards, but if we were doing baseball awards at the hat, Rob Thompson, I think should be the runaway manager of the year. And I don't think it's close in the National League. I don't even know who else would be in the mix. There's a lot of 500-ish teams in the wild card. That's great. Not going to give them manager of the year award. Maybe Murphy in Milwaukee because they weren't expected to be this good. But I think Topper, for everything Tucker just said, for having the best team pillar to post, for navigating through the injuries, he's been incredible. I mean, Rob Thompson is a tremendous manager. He didn't get those accolades when I thought he could have won it in 2022. This feels like a year for Rob Thompson to win the manager of the year. I appreciate everyone listening, subscribing, following WIP Daily. We'll talk soon.